Yeah, we have Trevor Penya, Jags wide receiver. This one's interesting to me because obviously I am a Jags fan. From an outside perspective, taking this game separately, this Jags receiver court is honestly just the room itself is so incredibly deep. You have your top three guys that everyone knows, BTJ, Parker Washington, Myers, of course. Why can't Jacoby Myers? And then behind them, you have Travis Hunter, Josh Cameron, and CJ Williams. And then behind them, you still have Tim Jones, Austin Tremble, Chandler Brayboy, and Trevor Penya, who has honestly played arguably the best out of any receiver. So I did want to take a second and kind of just really go over his first 2 weeks. He's had a fantastic connection with Joey Aguilar, who's been another really good player for the Jags this preseason. Last week, he really showed that. But Trevor has had 7 catches, 130 yards for 1 touchdown. He has a long of 43 yards. That was also Joey Aguilar's only completion week 1. 18 yards per catch. He truly, in a deep receiver room, he has shown a bunch, and I could see a huge situation where the Jags are fighting to keep him on the practice squad at least. But he is very much a player that has exceeded expectations, again, in such a quality room. Jacoby Myers is your veteran. You know what you have in him. He is that, very consistent player. Parker Washington has improved massive and extreme amount. He's shown now he could be their wide receiver 1. Obviously, you have Brian Thomas Jr., who's that high potential, as well as your deep threat, one-on-one jump ball guy. And then Travis Hunter, he is kind of like this, almost like a unicorn. Trevor Hunter is. He can do so much for your team. And of course, behind that, you do have such an incredible wide receiver room. Williams and James Stern, both day 3 rookies who have done exceedingly well. So the fact that Trevor Penya has come in for this Jags team and has played outstanding, especially behind those key players, and Tim Jones, Austin Trammell, and has done an exceedingly great job. Trevor Penya, 7 catches, 130 yards, 1 touchdown for the last 2 weeks. Another player who's been rising over, especially this last week, is Joe Milton. Obviously, Joe Milton is not fighting for a starting job. Dak Prescott has that locked down. Joe Milton is a guy from college who just had probably the strongest arm ever recorded. And he was a guy that, no matter what the throw was going to throw a million miles per hour. But this last preseason game, and kind of for the past 2 weeks, he's shown a lot more than just a big arm. 18 of 26 passing, that is a 69.2% rate, which guy that throws it as hard and as far as he does, that's very good progression. 179 yards, so right around 10 yards per throw. 2 touchdowns. Big key here, 0 interceptions, which is huge for Joe Milton, as well as a rushing touchdown. Passer rating of 151.4, which is exceedingly incredible. Joe Milton has been, he's basically like that project quarterback. Was he a 6th-round pick from the Patriots? Behind him, Drake May gets traded to the Cowboys. He comes in at times and has incredible highlights, but at the same time has very big lowlights. He's very similar to, Anthony Richardson from the Colts in that way, where he shows these huge flashes, but at the same time, you're wanting so much more from him. So the biggest takeaway for me here is 2 things: is A, the 0 interceptions, 0 turnovers, as well as the 69.2% completion percentage, which is massive for a player like Joe Milton. So that's incredible coming from him, as well as just being able to use his legs with a rushing touchdown. Third player, I have Ty Robinson. This is a very athletic defensive tackle from Nebraska. Another kind of depth key piece of this Eagles defensive tackle room, who just have so much talent, honestly. Of course, you take away the fact that Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis both are 2 of their positions at nose tackle and defensive tackle. Both got huge contracts. Wilson Williams left in free agency. They just consistently have fantastic depth and fantastic players at defensive tackle. And right now, looking at Ty Robinson completely fits, that stereotype. So Ty Robinson in 2 games, 4 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, 6 pressures. He's everywhere. Again, this is a undersized, athletic defensive tackle, and honestly, the fact that he is behind so much depth with Jordan, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, I would not be surprised if a team comes out here and sees everything that Tyrone Tate is doing and trying to trade for him. He is too talented to stay in such a crowded defensive tackle room, and I would love to see him really be able to grow into that role on a different team. Obviously, probably won't happen considering he was, a day 2, day 3 pick, but there's just so much positivity coming from him. So the fact that he's just been this depth piece that in literally 2 games, not only 3 sacks, he's shown that run stopping ability, 3 tackles for loss, as well as 6 pressures, 4 quarterback hits. He is consistently getting to the quarterback, which is more than what you need from a defensive tackle. So it's incredible. Who would you like at the turn after taking Gibbs 1.01, pick 1, round 1? Do you mean round 1, pick 2? Either Bijan. Obviously now Bijan is not fighting for snaps with Tyler Algier, so that's really good stuff, as well as having 2 quarterbacks, Michael Penix and Tua, who are both not incredible, and we'll probably check it down to him a lot. Jamar Chase is always going to be up there. He has not dealt with as many injuries recently, and he's going to get his catches, yards, touchdowns, but I would take those 2, considering, Christian McCaffrey is always an incredible answer. Only thing is can he stay healthy? In the second and first of the third, obviously it kind of just depends on how many people are in your league, but honestly, it's hard to go wrong. I like going running back, wide receiver. So, yeah, I mean, if you have Jahmyr Gibbs first overall, like you are probably going to be fine. Second, third, Breece Hall. I mean, here's the thing: if Breece Hall, I know he's dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury currently. If he can stay healthy, Breece Hall should do really well. Geno Smith has shown the ability that he wants to check down a bunch as well. Again, Malik Neighbors, it's questionable. Obviously, there's the whole situation of, again, it's 2 guys who have dealt with injuries in the past. Malik Neighbors is that guaranteed wide receiver 1, especially with Wan'Dale Robinson gone, and who took so many targets and receptions. And going into that kind of John Harbaugh system, they do tend to have kind of that wide receiver 1. This is what Zay Flowers have done in the past. Honestly, I like running back. I think Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs gives you 2 guys who are pure, bell cow running backs pretty much, as well as a high upside in the passing game. Yeah, pick 1, or round 1, pick of 5. I mean, honestly, to me, it's Jahmyr, Bijan, Jamar, Christian McCaffrey, and then behind that, probably Puka. Those are like my top 5, and then 6 would be Jason. So if you can find a way to get one of those 6 guys, which at 5 you should be able to, I'll go with that. I think out of that group and with pick 5, McCaffrey to me has the highest upside, but that is because the fact that he has dealt so many injuries. Amon-Ra, I want to say it's a reach. And again, at pick 5, there's a lot of talent to go through. We saw a regression with the offense last year with Ben Johnson. I don't think he has much that hits Amon-Ra, because Jameson Williams is not going to get a ton of catches. He's going to be that deep threat that allows someone like Amon-Ra to really do well in the underneath routes. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a hefty workload both in the pass game and run game, of course. I think Amon-Ra has the chance to do his standard production, 120 catches, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think it's a good pick regardless of who you go through. Back to winners and losers. So we talked about Ty Robinson. I now have Mike Washington Jr. This is a guy who was drafted this past year to be that backup to Alshon Jeanty, as well as that change of pace back, had some really high pass catching ability. But he is a athletic freak. He did incredible in combine. He had a fantastic last year in college. He is fantastic. The biggest thing and the biggest concern with him as a prospect was the fact that he had a tendency to fumble the ball, which we have seen a lot of these newer running backs. But from what he's shown the last 2 weeks, I mean, 15 carries, 119 yards, almost 8 yards a carry. That's amazing, especially the fact that Ashton Jeanty is dealing with an injury right now, and you feel good with the idea that you could go into the season with Mike Washington with what he's shown going into this preseason. So, I mean, just the speed, the contact balance. Obviously, he has not had a rushing touchdown yet. He is a big back that you would love to see in that goal line situation if Ashton Jeanty is not ready to go, or if Clint Kubiak wants to kind of mix it up a little bit, which we've seen a lot with his time with the Seahawks and the Saints. But it is really promising, especially if Ashton Jeanty is not someone who can go, as the start of the season, or maybe if he's tend to be a little bit slower because of that ankle injury. Lastly, for the winners of this past week, I'm doing Jack Strand. This is such a fun story. He was a UDFA from Minnesota State Moorhead, a D2 college. Obviously, coming in as that quarterback 3, quarterback 4 this offseason, you had Michael Penix and Tua as your 1 and 2. During the offseason, both of them get hurt in OTAs. And then Jack Strand out of nowhere comes in and just takes full responsibility for first team reps, which he does really good in. And it's this key idea that he gets all of these reps. So with that, he comes in this last preseason game and he dominates. He truly shows like he is that quarterback that took all those reps, because he did. He went 12 for 17, 212 yards, 1 touchdown. He also rushed for 9 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the rushing is not super efficient, but you know what you have in his athletic ability. But the fact that he completed 14 out of his first 15 passes, like he was really good in that aspect, was able to get a touchdown both on the ground and in the air, which is what you want from a really young quarterback who can show, even with his limited athletic ability, that he has that ability to feel comfortable enough to get it on the ground and in the air. Incredibly promising. I'm not expecting him to compete for either quarterback spot, obviously. If he does end up getting waived, which is a whole another situation, I don't think he comes back on the practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised with the consistent injuries in this Falcons quarterback room if Jack Strand ends up actually staying on the roster and the Falcons carry 3 quarterbacks into this year. But with what we saw, he was great. Like, I don't think anybody's going to be upset that they have a really good, efficient quarterback as your third string with a young guy that's obviously not costing anything. Now we get into some losers. Again, before I kind of go over these losers, some of them are from just this previous week. Some of them are from the last 2 weeks. The one from the last 2 weeks is Cardinal Tate. This one, it's not great watching. In 2 games, he's had 5 targets, and out of those 5 targets, it's been 0 catches. Now, I talked last week about the fact that Cam Ward has struggled a lot in the preseason so far, and partially of that is because of Cardinal Tate. You draft the wide receiver 4th overall, and before you get into the actual prospect of Cardinal Tate, there were some flaws, but you're expecting to be that wide receiver 1. You're expecting to take that big primary X position and that outside and dominate. That's what he was doing in college. He was never that wide receiver 1 in college, but he took one-on-one opportunities all the time, and he did really, really well. Well, now we're watching, and he's not nearly as fast. There's a lot of route running issues that he's fallen into, especially that I keep playing back in my head on week 1, the out route at the goal line where he just his full work is really rough. There's no intent of trying to sell a different route, and the pass ended up being batted down. He has not looked great, it is concerning. Obviously, when you are at Ohio State, you're expected to be this incredible wide receiver, and he was really good his past year. He was not the number 1 target at all, honestly, as well as he was never the number 1 focus of any other team. That was Jeremiah Smith. Julian Sayin, their quarterback last year, was a guy with very high efficiency. He's going to complete a lot of passes at a high clip, and Cardinal Tate kind of became that guy with very soft hands, but he never outran anyone. He did really well in jump ball situations because he had limited attention towards him, but he never jumped out of the park. So a lot of people were shocked by the fact that he went 4th overall, and he has not shown those haters away. Like, 2 games. Now, again, it's not high targets, but that's also partially because the fact that he can't get open. If he was consistently getting open, this offensive schema would get him targets. He's not. He's not playing a lot, but it's still not great. And 0 catches out of those 5 targets is even worse. I mean, he has a league separation right now when it comes to his routes ran with less than a yard of separation. And there's very little quarterbacks that can do a lot with only 1 yard of separation. And Cam Ward, honestly, is not one of those quarterbacks. Very disappointing. This one, I do have Deshaun Watson, but to me, this is just the Browns. It was released this week that Deshaun Watson will be your day 1 starter if you're a Browns fan and for this Browns team. I had a feeling this was going to happen. This isn't saying that I think Deshaun Watson is better. I do think Deshaun Watson has shown more, and with a head coach like Todd Monken, who is a little more old style, I'm not surprised that he goes with a quarterback that is more of a veteran. Both of these quarterbacks have shown promising highs as well as a lot of lows last year when it comes to just the regular season. Should I trade Chase Brown and DJ Moore for Amon-Ra? I would. Obviously, this kind of also depends on your roster. Chase Brown is someone who should be able to consistently get production each week, both on the ground and in the pass game. DJ Moore is a little bit more questionable just because so many of this Bills team is built so much on the run. That's why James Cook, Josh Allen, that's why they were able to go so far like they did with just, Shakir and Keon Coleman. If you feel like you have a running back that could replace Chase Young's production at a good enough level, Amon-Ra is incredibly better in fantasy than DJ Moore. DJ Moore is a guy that have a few catches a game, will get some rack yards, but if you're doing PPR, then Amon-Ra should be pretty good. Amari Hampton he's that questionable guy this year. Josh Jacobs should have a fantastic year. He is coming back from a little bit of, he dealt with a little bit of injuries as well as some off the field issues this past year, but they got rid of Emmanuel Wilson, who was their backup. Marshawn Lloyd, their high draft pick as a backup running back, has not played in 2 years. Josh Jacobs should get a lot of work. Amari Hampton is that question. He showed some promise last year, his rookie year, but again, injuries were not great. And then they were able to get some stuff out of like Kamani Vidal, for example. I do think Amari Hampton will be pretty decent. And obviously, I do think Josh Jacobs should come back to a little bit more of how he was last year, or the year before, when it comes to that pass catching ability. I would go for it. If that's an opportunity you have, I would. I feel like Amon-Ra is slipping a little bit more than he potentially should, just because Gibbs is going so much higher and his production should be a lot more, as well as this offense was a lot worse without Ben Johnson, even though their key players did succeed in production. If Amon-Ra can stay healthy, he should be one of the top wide receivers this year when it comes to fantasy. So I would take the deal if you have the chance. Yeah, that's fair. Again, it kind of all just depends on how you feel. If you feel BCR, it's giving it a 2-for-1. From just a perspective of upgrading DJ Moore to Amon-Ra, that's really good. And then Chase Brown, Amari Hampton. Chase Brown will end up being better. That's the thing. But Amari has weeks where he should explode, where he could potentially play a little more risky or even sell high on a few weeks. Chase Brown's never going to be a top 5 running back of a week, but he would never fall out of the top 20. Amari Hampton, I can see him going from top 3 to top 40 in 1 week, plus the injury concern as well. It's your decision. I think Amon-Ra is worth that risk because he is that full-on number 1 option with this Lions offense, while DJ Moore has shown that ability, but I do think Amon-Ra, that's a pretty good choice. How do I feel about Jamar? He's the best receiver in the league. Like, you know what you're going to get with him in fantasy and in production. He's going to have close to 130 catches, 1,400 yards, double-digit touchdowns. If he can stay healthy, he's also shown doesn't necessarily matter what quarterback is playing with him. I know there's been reports of him getting hurt. Honestly, I haven't necessarily I've seen some videos, but also there's the same video of that Joe Burrow of him getting hurt where he got hurt a few years ago. So I would look for it. But if he can stay healthy, that production is the best receiver in the league. I would take Jamar over Jason just because of Clint Kubiak missing. Their offensive scheme is so much different. He did get hurt in practice today. Did he come out and say anything else about it? Sorry, I didn't look at this beforehand. Trying to look the parent leg issue. Okay. All the reports have been saying that it was a hyperextension. He avoided serious leg injury. To me, that's nothing too serious, considering that he has 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the season starts. So I wouldn't be concerned about it, honestly. Okay, real quick, back to Deshaun Watson. I think if you're a Browns fan, both of Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders are very equal when it comes to play style and what talent you want to get off on the field. I would go for the guy who has higher potential in Shedeur. But I think with a old style head coach like Todd Monken, you're going to go with the guy that's more of a veteran, as well as the fact that you're going with the guy that you're paying an insane amount of money. And, this preseason, they've been neck and neck. Week 1, Deshaun Watson outplayed Shedeur when it came to accuracy, timing, quality in the pocket. This past game, he did not. 5 for 12, 36 yards, 1 interception. It's a rough situation to be in. It's this consistent cycle of lack of quarterback play that the Browns have faced for years. Baker Mayfield for about 2 years showed some consistency, but before that, Derek Anderson in the early 2000s was their last consistent quarterback, and I don't know if they have one in Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders right now. Tyrone Tracy is another guy that's been, has not been looking too good. Tyrone Tracy is that really good third down running back. He's a former wide receiver. He has really good hands for a running back. He adds another dimension of this offense that Cam Scabo doesn't necessarily have as much. I know Cam can catch the ball pretty well, but Tyrone Tracy's a whole nother level. But this past game, 6 carries, 26 yards, which is not terrible, 4.3 yards per carry, but he did have a fumble in the first half. But another big thing is he's also the guy that led up the big sack on Jackson Dart in week 1. That's 2 big mistakes that a veteran running back is making, and back-to-back preseason games where he could potentially get cut. And I'm being serious. And to show this, they brought in Najee Harris. They just signed him. This isn't out of the blue. They just brought in Najee Harris. He is fighting for that backup to the third string with Devin Singletary and, of course, Cam Scatterbo. And if he's consistently making big problems like this, big, I don't know if it's mental mistakes or if it's just the fact that he's not, whatever it is, this is bad. And I don't think, unless Tyrone Tracy completely goes really good, if Tyrone Tracy does end up playing really, really well in the third preseason game, he might stay, but this is not looking too good for him. I also have the Kansas City Chiefs right tackle situation. How about this as the position group that everyone should kind of spend time and look at last week or maybe this week before, just because in the offseason, we've heard both Jalen Moore and Khalil Benson have taken starting reps at the right tackle. Jalen Moore is a guy that signed a 1 year, $30 million. AJ Brown or Brock after I draft Puka. I like Brock a lot more. Oh, my screen. I like Brock a lot more. I don't think he's very much fighting for any sort of competition. If Kirk Cousins, which it seems like Kirk Cousins will be that starting quarterback at the start of the season, he's shown that he is willing to throw the ball as much as he needed, even as early as last year. In his years with both Washington and Minnesota, he's shown that he loves throwing to his tight ends. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson, his time with, even the Falcons, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, and then a mixture of Jordan Reed and Logan Thomas, that whole scenario with Washington. But I do like Brock Bowers. I think obviously Trey McBride and Brock Bowers to me are kind of neck and neck when it comes to tight ends. AJ Brown, I think, could be good. I think there is a lot of stuff surrounding him, and as well as it's being a very competitive, crowded group. When he was with the Eagles, it was very clear the ball is either going to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, or Dallas Goedert. Now with the Patriots, it's A.J. Brown, could be Romeo Doubs, could be Hunter Henry, Pop Douglas, as well as Ramondre Stevenson. So it's just the fact, like, I think he's fighting a lot more when it comes to competition than what Brock Bowers is. Because other than Brock Bowers, you have Jalen Naylor, you have Jack Beck, you have Dante Thornton, Trey Tucker. Those aren't necessarily big time weapons. So I'll probably do Brock Bowers second round. Kansas City Chiefs right tackle. So I previously talked about the fact that I thought this was a competition that everybody should kind of watch for. Both tackles, Jalen Moore and Khalil Benson, took first team reps this offseason. Jalen Moore is a guy that signed a 2-year, $30 million last offseason to potentially play swing tackle or tackle if necessary. That was before they drafted Josh Simmons. Khalil Benson is a UDFA undrafted free agent from Indiana, their right tackle. Both of them apparently played well enough to share and split first team reps. Well, they both played rough in this last preseason game. Khalil Benson had a 33.4 PFF grade, which is horrendous. Jalen Moore, not much better with a 40.7. Together, they surrendered 8 total pressures out of like 24 true pass setting snaps. So this is not great, considering that this Chiefs team has dealt with injuries and inconsistencies with the offensive line for especially that tackle position for a very long time. This is not looking great. Like, obviously they cut Jawan Taylor because his cap hit was too big, and they thought they had his replacement already in house with Jalen Moore, who they obtained with free agency 2 years ago for that swing tackle position. He's not played very well. They didn't draft any offensive tackles, so they go and grab Khalil Benson, national championship right tackle, doesn't play well either. So it's unless either one of them is very quickly able to change and really come out on top, I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking for the waiver wire or even a potential trade option. Could see a situation like, I know there's a few offensive tackles still in free agency. Walker Little with the Jaguars could be an option at the right tackle spot, but it's not looking too good. Lastly, I have Jalen Milro. This one's interesting. Jalen Milro is the backup to Sam Darnold with the Seahawks. Jalen Milro was a former 5th-round pick out of Alabama. He was the same offseason as when the Seahawks signed Sam Darnold. There was a lot of, outside talk about if Jalen Milro would potentially even start because of his upside, his incredible athletic ability. And he does have that. He's an incredible athlete, but when he take his true quarterback technique and that idea with him, it's not great. It's not great. This past game, he went 6 for 11, which is right above 50%. 52 yards, which is under 10 yards per attempt, which isn't terrible. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, though. That's what's not great. Passer rating of 27.7. That is terrible. Terrible for a quarterback. He wasn't able to get any points in the second half. Seahawks went scoreless, ended up losing their last week's preseason game. I don't think he's ever going to be someone that gets any true playing time. He's not it seems like he's not necessarily taking up a lot of his opportunities, or at least playing well enough for it. Devontae Smith and Bucky for Neighbors and Jalen Warren. I'm not a huge fan of that. I like Devontae Smith and what he could bring to as that true number 1 wide receiver. Bucky Irving is interesting as well, just because he should share a lot of snaps with Kenneth Gainwell. Malik Neighbors, I like Devontae Smith. Neighbors, truthfully, I don't think, especially with Mekhi Lemon kind of injured right now, I think Devontae Smith has a better clear path of becoming a better wide receiver to at least start of the season. I think in that hardball system, it favors very much the run game, which Cam Scavo is very similar built to Derrick Henry. I'm not saying they're the same player. I'm saying it's very similar play style, as well as you have Isaiah Likely, who knows that system at tight end. And that system very much favors that tight end as the clear number 1 option. Zay Flowers and Malik Neighbors do play kind of a little bit of a different play style. Zay Flowers finds a lot of quick passes that he takes it longer yards. Malik is more of someone that is that route running expertise if he's fully healthy. Jalen Warren, I like Bucky Irving more than Jalen Warren, even though that Bucky is fighting that position. So is Jalen Warren. But to me, again, all this fancy advice is very much your decision. I don't want to give you any negative answers, but I do like Devontae Smith over Malik Neighbors for fantasy this year. 8 by 14-man redraft. Mahomes, Saquon, Chase Brown, Jay Jettas, Neighbors, Tucker Kraft, Garrett Wilson, Wan'Dale Robinson should be top running backs. I kind of said this earlier. I know Saquon had a poor season last year, but I do think majority of that was just offensive consistency. The entire offense was pretty poor. I think he should come back to a higher fantasy player. Chase Brown to me is probably the most underrated consistent running back right now in fantasy. Jay Jettas, he's going to get his targets regardless of who the quarterback is. If it is Kyler Murray, we've seen in the past that his ability to get his guys targets. I go back to Devontae Hopkins. We had like 1,400 yards that year that got traded from the Texans. So I do think Jay Jettas is going to be very good. Malik Neighbors, again, he is that question mark to me. Both him and Tucker Kraft actually both fall kind of in this situation of can they stay healthy enough to really work out. Garrett Wilson, I think, is an excellent pick. I think he is extremely underrated right now. I know that Jets team had added more options and weapons. Omar Cooper, Kenny Sadiq. I do think Garrett Wilson is still that clear number one option. Should get tons of targets, even if it is Geno Smith throwing it to him. Wan'Dale Robinson, this one I'm higher on now because of the lack of completions and the lack of progression that we've seen from Cardinal Tate so far. I do think Wan'Dale fits exactly what Cam Ward has played with and succeeded the most in his career. Xavier Restrepo, of course, is what I'm talking about this time in Miami. I do think Wan'Dale Robinson, while he may not have, the 115 catches, 1,000 yards, a few touchdowns like he's had the last few years, I do think he will consistently have more and more completion. So I do really like that team. Mahomes, it's interesting. He doesn't have as many weapons. If he can stay healthy again, I know he's coming off of a big time injury. If he's able to come back and be very close to his actual Mahomes self, that's a fantastic team, especially in a 14-man draft. Very quickly, you want to go just a very quick and go right back over some winners and losers from week 2. Trevor Penya, it's a very stacked wide receiver room with the Jaguars, not just their top 3 guys, Kobe Myers, Parker Washington, BTJ, but as well as the backup options, CJ Williams, Josh Cameron, and Travis Hunter, of course. Then you have Trevor Penya, Austin Tremble, and Tim Jones are key special teamers. Chandler Boy, that's a lot of people in that room. Trevor Penya in these preseason games has fully come out and has done extremely well. 7 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. Joe Milton, he is that big development player, one of the biggest, strongest arms in the league. His biggest issues were accuracy as well as turnovers, as well as just making the easier reads, not always going for the big play, and he's shown that ability at a very high clip. Almost 70% completion percentage, 18 for 26, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, as well as a rushing touchdown. Very high passer rating at 151.4. Ty Robinson, this is a depth piece defensive tackle for the Eagles who should honestly get a bunch more reps. I wouldn't be surprised if he is a guy that could potentially get traded because of how crowded this defensive tackle room. He is currently the 4th defensive tackle. 4 total tackles, 3 sacks. This is all in 2 games. 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, and 6 pressures. He's not going to get a lot of playing time if the guys in front of him stay healthy. This is an incredible athlete, and he's done extremely well so far this offseason. Mike Washington Jr., backup running back for big physical fast running back. 50 carries, 119 yards, no touchdowns, but almost 8 yards a carry. This is a fantastic emergency plan if Ashton Jeanty cannot go start of the season. Mike Washington has been that bell cow running back a few years in college. He's had a little bit of a fumbling issue, but extremely athletic and very big build, should be really well as a change of pace to Ashton Jeanty. Jack Strand, D2 quarterback, undrafted free agent from Minnesota State, Moorhead, comes into this offseason. He takes a lot of first team reps, especially with Tua and Michael Penix both being injured at times. Played extremely well, very efficient, both on the ground and can get stuff down, in the air, and can get stuff needed in the ground. 12 for 17, 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 carries, 22 yards, 1 touchdown. Can do both. Very efficient. Does what he needs to do. Love the fact that he's under 12 with 12 passes. He had over 2 yards. Afraid to take those deep shots. To me, I think he's done an extremely well job. Now, for the guys that have been a little bit of losers from week 2 or previously, Cardinal Tate in 2 weeks, he's had 5 targets for 0 catches for the number 4 overall pick, who's had some questions about speed, running athletic ability. This is not a good way to kind of shield away some of those comments. So this is not a good outing for the last 2 weeks. Very, very disappointing. Raw running, especially he's just honestly getting his release package has not been great. It's not been happened too well. Hopefully he's able to turn it around very quickly. This entire offense needs to turn around very quickly. Browns fans with Deshaun Watson, he's been named the starter. He played very poorly this past week. Week 1, he did play better, but it's a situation where both quarterbacks have had ups and some downs. I don't know who's necessarily better. I do know Shador brings him more potential. I think with Todd Monken being a little bit more of as Deshaun Watson has shown more than Shador Sanders. I don't think so, but I'm not. Tyrone Tracy, he's fighting for that running back 3 spot in the Giants offense. Back-to-back weeks, he's made big-time key mistakes. Week 1, he misses a key block that lets Jackson Dart get absolutely destroyed. Kittle or injuries week 1. If Kittle is healthy, I'm going with Kittle every time. There's been so many consistent injuries with that 49ers wide receiver group that we know Kittle, he's the guy that has that chemistry with Brock Purdy. You know he's going to get his reps, targets, catches, and potential yards. Mark Andrews, out of all these tight ends in the past, I think we've seen Mark Andrews, his athletic ability really decrease these last few years. I do like Kittle more than Andrews for week 1. Again, Tyrone Tracy, back-to-back weeks, had big-time mental errors when it comes to playing. Week 1, he had that big-time missed block on Jackson Dart, which led to him getting absolutely polarized. Week 2, he has a ball right before halftime. If a veteran running back keeps on having these issues, that's not good. You traded Ramondre Stevenson and Tedros McMillan for Christian Watson and Kyren. Ramondre Stevenson, not a huge fan of. He's going to split reps almost 50-50 with Travion Henderson. Tedros McMillan is going to be a wide receiver one with Carolina. If Christian Watson can stay healthy, he has a clear path of taking a huge step this year, especially with Romeo Doubs, Dontavius Wicks being out. I do like that. And Kyren is going to get both yards on the ground and in that passing game. I do like that trade. Again, only thing that I slightly dislike from it is letting go of someone like Tedros McMillan. But at the same time, this Panthers offense is so incredibly inconsistent that I do like your trade. I think it's a very positive move for your team. Breakout stash, Malachi Fields or Denzel Boston. Denzel Boston, I think it comes down to this. Malachi Fields is fighting for that wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 spot. I think Malik Neighbors will be healthy for start of the season. I think he has to fight Darius Slayton as well as a big variety of wide receivers after that. But Malachi Fields is more of a one-dimensional wide receiver. He's big, but he's not much of anything else. Thank you, Mac, for the rose, of course, man. Denzel Boston, to me, has shown not only does he have the same size as Malachi Fields, and this OTAs and offseason, he's shown a lot more promise, especially when it comes to route running and speed. Again, I do like the Giants passing game more than the Browns game. But with that being said, I do think that they want to give Denzel Boston a lot more usage and a heavier workload than Malachi Fields. So I do like Denzel Boston more. Yeah, Austin. That's fair. I will say this. We have seen big time, like big body receivers in this Ravens offense not really succeed very much. They're a team that's very much dealt with deep passes as well as quick passes to get yards after catch. And Malachi Fields does not necessarily fit that build for the Raven or for Harbaugh and his system. Darius Slayton he's not great, but because of his contract, he's going to consistently get usage. And I think especially John Harbaugh has shown he tends to like veterans more. He'll probably end up jumping, or at least the usage off the depth chart. Watson, I'm sure Christian Watson, he is horrible. I'll say this. Beginning of his career, he was used a lot as that deep threat one-on-one jump ball. I will say he's dealt with a lot of injuries, which has very much hurt his progression. But all the talk out of training camp and OTAs has been the fact that he has done all he needs to do to become that wide receiver one. And there's been so many targets that in that crowded wide receiver room has kind of dispersed with Romeo Doubs and Dontavius Wicks. So I do think that Christian Watson will take that next step. Scott's still fine as shirt. I trade him before the season. Deshaun Watson, it's a whole situation where he got the start. I do understand that from that perspective, but I will throw this at you. John Harbaugh with the Ravens, which he has shown that he is trying to bring as much of the same play style as possible. He loves to run the ball. And I think it's very much shown with the fact that they have Cam Gadbo, who I do think is going to be fine before the season starts. I think he's going to be that bell cow running back. They have Devin Singletary. They just brought in Najee Harris after Tyrone Tracy has not played well. I think they want to stick with the run game a lot, both put back and dart and the run game. I just don't necessarily think Malachi Fields fits the play style that they are looking for as much as someone like it was the other guy that you were talking about, Denzel Boston. Yeah, Deshaun Watson is very poor, but at the same time, I feel like we are going to see a lot of passing attempts from Deshaun Watson because they are going to be consistently coming from behind because they're not going to take enough leads. This defense, while they have really good players, they've also shown that they are willing to kind of tank. I think it's a big reason why they went for that first round pick last year for that Myles Garrett trade. They are going to be they're going to be a lot less competitive. So it's a lot more passes. And if you are down by a lot, you want to get passes and touchdowns quick. You're going to throw it to your, jump ball receivers down the field. And that is what Denzel Boston is going to be for him. Again, I can see both. I 100% see both sides of it. I think I'm just a fan of the game. I'm not in either team's, coaching staff. So I completely see both sides of it. But yeah, 100%. I think both of them are young guys that are here to prove themselves. And I think both of them can be really good in their roles. I think DJ Boston has a lot less crowded wide receiver room and is going to potentially see, or Denzel Boston, I'm sorry, is going to see a lot more action early on compared to Malachi Fields, who is in we've all seen that. There's a lot of bodies in that Giants room. So I think that's all I kind of think. Puka for Kyron and Neighbors, who wins. Man, Puka's going to be a dog, of course. If he was able to stay healthy, he could have honestly competed for that completion percent or completions record. I'll say this, I know that there's a little bit of talks of potentially, Mac, thank you for the confetti, dude. I was sick. There's a chance Puka could get suspended for at least a game or two from some off the field issues. If that happens, that's going to be really bad. I don't think it will. Again, Malik Neighbors, he's coming off of a big time knee injury, and I think that could be really skeptical. I do think Puka. Kyron is also a guy who has shown that ability to be a bell cow running back as well as someone that can be really good when it comes to receiving the ball. I do think Blake Corum has kind of taken over a little bit of his production, especially last year. So I think Puka, what you have with him. Devontae Adams, with him getting older and also dealing with more and more injuries, I think he's going to take less and less passing. So I do like Puka. Ladd McConkey for AJ Brown. I'll be getting Brown. I'll say this. Both players are in very competitive wide receiver rooms. I honestly think I like Ladd McConkey a little bit more because of this. Ladd McConkey played a lot of plays in the slot his rookie year where he was really good. Last year, the Chargers went out and brought back Keenan Allen, who plays a lot in that slot, which took away about 83 completions and receptions from that slot, which Ladd McConkey played really well in. Again, Keenan Allen is now with the Colts. Ladd McConkey is, because it's Punk in the slot, you have Quinton Johnston at X, you have Trey Harris at Y. Ladd's going to completely eat up that middle of the field. A.J. Brown, he had a very disappointing last year. I know the offense system he was in did not favor him. He was put on a lot more deep balls than he ever has been, and a lot less completions, a lot less receptions. He does come in right now with the Patriots that like to run the ball, and he's also deals with a very crowded wide receiver room, which includes, of course, Pop Douglas and Romeo Doubs. But I will say this, 34-year-old Stephon Diggs was productive, had over 1,000 yards. I do think A.J. Brown can continue that production to even extend it past what Stephon Diggs is. I think the potential of Ladd McConkey, I like more, but I do think A.J. Brown, you're getting yourself a solidified star with your wide receiver spot. I think Ladd has a chance of being a top wide receiver 1 week and maybe a middle of the pack the next. A.J. Brown will probably consistently be upper middle. So it kind of just depends on how you want to play your team. Mac, thank you for the follow, dude. Yeah, Kim was sending wide receiver rooms Jay Jettis and Smitty with Ladd. That's fantastic. Jay Jettis is going to get his receptions regardless of who's throwing the ball. I really like Devontae Smith in this offense. He is not competing with anyone currently, with Mekhi Lemon currently hurt, and with him being a rookie. Dontavius Wicks is that other receiver. He is not someone that's going to get as much usage as Devontae Smith. So yeah, honestly, you can't go wrong with either of them, to be honest with you. Again, I like a little more potential because I like playing a little more risky, but both of them are fantastic options. I talked about Tyrone Tracy. He's made some boneheaded mistakes the last 2 weeks. Missed blocking, fumbling. Can't do that when you're supposed to be your third down running back who's incredible in the pass catching ability. 6 carries for 26 yards is not terrible. Kansas City Chiefs, the right tackle situation. Jalen Moore and Khalil Benson both took first-team reps in OTAs and training camp. Jalen Moore has been, you think Stribling is going to have a breakout this year. I reached on him a little bit, but I love his tape. I'll say this. If Deshaun Stribling has a fantastic pathway to get high production early on this season because of so many injuries, I will say this. The fact that Ricky Pearsall is not going to be out again out this entire year, I do like Deshaun Stribling for the fact that he's going to be able to come out and play really well on the outside. The only thing is, he's not going to be probably the number 1 or number 2 option each play. It's going to go to George Kittle and Mike Evans, but I do think he brings something else with him. So I do like that for sure. I think he has potential to be really good in this offense. Trey Benty and Rice for Jamar and Judkins. I'll be the first one to say this. I'm not a huge fan of Jonty. Wow, I've been talking here for a while. Jamar and Judkins, I do like it. I think Jamar is one of the best receivers. You know what you're going to get consistently. Judkins, I think he's going to be more of a bell cow this year. Last year, they were trying to do what they had in both Quinshon Judkins and Dillon Gabriel, and I don't think Dillon Gabriel is nearly as productive as Quinshon Judkins, of course, is. And I do think he's going to get a lot more playing and a lot more ability to have more completions, especially they will be down in so many games. I do like Quinshon Judkins. Jamar, again, is fantastic. Ashton Jeanty, I'm not the biggest fan of this year. I'm probably way off on that, and I'm sure a lot of people can be upset. But it comes down to this. Clint Kubiak has come out and said he's again the new head coach for the Raiders. He was the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. He's said himself that he wants more of a balanced running back room, as well as the fact that Mike Washington this preseason has played really well, the backup running back, with Clint Kubiak when he was over with the Seahawks this past year. He did run the ball the highest mark of any team, but the issue is this snap percentage of Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet were very, very similar. And if I'm Ashton Jeanty, then I want him to get as many snaps as possible. And I have a feeling there's going to be a chance like he it's not going to his snap count is going to be almost probably 60-40, if not 65-35 with Mike Washington, and he's not going to play as much. Was Kyle Pitts a bad tight end pick? I wouldn't say that as much. I think that the big thing, of course, is the fact that I'll approach real quick. Xander is completely your choice. Like I'm not I'm not part of any of these teams. I don't know truly what any team's going to do. I'm just trying to throw a perspective of someone who watched a lot of live stream, trying to follow some rumors and stuff from camp. Kyle Pitts, a bad tight end pick? I don't think so. I will say this. If you look at the Falcons' weapons, you have Drake London, who is he's your number one guy. He should get a ton of production. But they really, they brought in Zachariah Branch, third round pick. Everything I've seen, he's a little bit more of a gadget guy. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who's going to be out on the field 100% of snaps, going to get a lot of targets. I think Kyle Pitts has a very good chance of taking a lot of opportunities this year with getting a lot of production, especially in that pass catching ability. I do think everybody says that he is the highest potential. I think you know what you're going to get with him. I think you're going to have weeks where he blows up. You're going to have some weeks where he is not part of the game plan. I think you just have to be prepared for things like that. Caleb Williams or Drake May week 1. I don't know who they're up against. I haven't memorized the schedule quite yet. That part's up to you. I will say this. I think the Bears are going to start this year off trying to run the ball a lot. I think you can kind of point towards their current personnel. They're going to run a lot of 13 with Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, and Sam Roush, who they drafted. They really only have 2 startable wide receivers on their current roster, Luther Burden and Rome Odunze. I think they're going to come out, really try to hammer out the run game. Maybe I would lean more towards Drake May, plus the fact that they will probably get A.J. Brown accumulated pretty quickly into this offense, and I could see them trying to force some balls towards his position, towards him, and I think Drake May could start the season off pretty hot. Of course, dude. I also think Drake May is probably upset that he didn't win MVP last year. And I could see him doing everything in his power to have a better year than year 2, which was incredible. Yeah, so the Chiefs, both tackles, take first team reps. Dylan Moore signed a 2-year, $30 million, not this offseason, but last offseason, be that swing tackle, potentially even their left tackle before they drafted Josh Simmons. Cleo Benson was an undrafted free agent from Indiana this past year. Both took first team reps. Both of them have played pretty rough, especially this past game. Cleo Benson, 33.4 PFF grade. That's very bad. Jalen Moore slightly better at 40.7. In 26 pure pass rushing attempts, both these tackles together combined for about 8 pressures surrendered, which is really bad. Jalen Milro, he is your development backup running back. When Jalen Milro was drafted, it's the same offseason that the Seahawks brought in Sam Darnold. There's a lot of outside talk of what if Jalen Milro, because of that high potential, comes in and could potentially start for him. Well, Jalen Milro was a loser this past week, and Sam Darnold has won a Super Bowl. So that can kind of tell you. Jalen Milro, in the air, just his fundamentals as a quarterback is really bad. 6 for 11, 52 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, 27.7 passer rating. That is really rough, really rough. But again, he is just a development project. I don't think he's going to get any real opportunities other than potentially some certain packages. He, to me, is a lot closer to AR, Anthony Richardson, than he'll ever be to RG3, Jane Daniels, Lamar. But kind of went over that. I do thank everyone stopping in, asking questions. I am not someone who's a huge fantasy football guide, but I do love to put my input in if you guys care about that. But again, thank you everyone for stopping in. Thank you so much for the few donations from everyone. And with that, I will have some of these clips out this week, as well as I will try my best to catch you guys next time. So without further ado,